call the meeting to order with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call, please.
Barr.
Here.
Giovanini.
Here.
Eckhoff. Here. Callis.
Here.
Lee.
Here.
Hicks.
Here.
Bradshaw. Gaber.
Here.
Willie.
Here. Thank you. Moving on, we have the consent agenda with 4 items. Any questions on that? So moved by Brian, second by Don. Roll call, please.
Barr.
Yes.
Giovanini.
Yes.
Eckhoff.
Yes.
Callis.
Yes.
Lee.
Yes.
Hicks.
Yes.
Gaber.
Yes.
Willie.
Yes. Thank you. Nick, you survived. Moving on to the regular agenda, surplus property disposition. Keith?
So we have a piece of surplus property in your package. You see the sign, there's a J.E. Brady sign. And I will let Mr. Hicks explain what the proposal is to do with that sign.
Well, I was approached by her granddaughter, and Mary's granddaughter, Mary's daughter, and she asked about it 6 months, 8 months ago. And I approached her, obviously, well, we better see if we know what we'll do, I guess. She'd like to have it. Her husband wants to, he's an electrical engineer, he'd like to wire it up and supply it for her. I know it's just sitting out there in the grass, so I didn't know, we could get it fine.
And that is correct. It has, we acquired it from the building on Madison Street, and it's just been sitting out in the city garage. We don't really have any value to it or any reason to not give it to the family.
So the question would be, do we want to donate it to the family and let them take care of it from there?
So moved.
So moved by Kelly, seconded by Jason Lee.
I got a question for Alan. Is there any indications, Alan?
Well, it's saving you disposal costs, so if you were to landfill, it would cost you money, so I don't see a problem since it doesn't have any monetary value. It's historical value for the family.
No other questions? Roll call, please.
Giovanini.
Yes.
Eckhoff.
Yes.
Callis.
Yes.
Lee.
Yes.
Hicks.
Yes.
Gaber.
Yes.
Willie.
Yes.
Barr.
Yes.
Thank you. Bringing forth the appointment to the Police Pension Board of Roger Walls. Roger served on the board for several years, and it came time to renew, and he volunteered to stay on. So, hearing no objections, I'd like a motion to approve Roger to the pension board. Moved by Frank and seconded by Don Hicks. Roll call, please.
Eckhoff.
Yes.
Callis.
Yes.
Lee.
Yes.
Hicks. Gaber.
Yes.
Willie.
Yes.
Barr.
Yes.
Giovanini.
Yes.
Thank you. I was going to try to set a record for a fast meeting, but I've been derailed on that, so. I have 5 pages of notes here to go over before we can do this now. Okay. The next item on the agenda is the proclamation for City Administrator Bob Carl's Day, which will be August 26th, 2022. Before we let Bob get up here and talk, we want to make mention of his great leadership and the fact that he's put up with 5 different mayors for the cost of his 40 years in office. It listed them on here for me. I can remember all of them. Memorly Dale Campbell, Mike Ingalls, Scott McCoy, and Robert Russell. His most tenuous time was the last guy, which is me. And it goes on to talk about all the historic events and buildings and everything that he's been involved with, including the creation of the TIF districts and the War Museum and the Complex Museum, the Eagle Theater. It doesn't say a thing about falling through the floor of the Eagle, I noticed, but I guess they couldn't put everything in. And I think we all know that when the city decided to go with a city administrator, the thought was that we'd have somebody for probably 4 to 5 years. Little did we know that we were going to get someone who would be the backbone of the city and probably put more work into this community than anybody could have ever imagined. So I go on and on for quite a bit, but I think Bob would probably get really mad at me and want to dispute everything. So without further ado, I'd like to read the proclamation and have Bob come up here. There, Bob. A proclamation by the city, for the city administrator Robert Carl's Day, August 26, 2022. Whereas the city administrator Bob Carls, having been duly appointed city administrator of the city of Pontiac, January 1st, 1982. Whereas the city administrator Bob Carls was appointed as the first city administrator of the city of Pontiac. Whereas the city administrator Robert Carls has served continuously with the city of Pontiac for 40 years. Whereas the city administrator Robert Carls, has faithfully and diligently and competently discharged duties of city administrator, budget officer, comptroller, peacekeeper too, I didn't know that. Okay. Whereas city administrator Robert Carls has announced his retirement effective September 2022. Now therefore, I, William L. Alvey, by virtue of the authority vested in me as mayor of the city of Pontiac and the state of Illinois, do hereby proclaim August 26, 2022 as City Administrator Robert Carl's Day. The city of Pontiac, Illinois, call upon the citizens of Pontiac to congratulate Robert on his dedicated service and to recognize all of the numerous hours of dedication and hard work that have made these our accomplishments possible. Bob, congratulations.
Well, back in December, when I announced my retirement, I said I'll hold off on my thank yous and my goodbyes till a later date. When Jim was sworn in, they said, "You want to say anything?" "No, I'll hold off on saying my thank yous and goodbyes till a later date." Well, that later date has gotten here. And so I've been up in front of you many times, and this is a tough one. But with that, let's get on with it. First of all, I've got a special guest here tonight. Susan, why don't you stand up? That you got a package deal when you hired me, and Susan came to the first city council meeting when I was sworn in, and walking out, she said, "I'll go to your last." And so she held true. And, being the wife of a city administrator isn't all that easy, that everybody expects. She knows exactly what's going on, and why is the city doing that? Why is the city doing that? Well, I don't know. You'll have to ask somebody that knows. Oh, you know. So plus all of our schedules were worked around Monday night. And so it's been a team effort. And I've told this story back in December, is that when we were driving here, I'd always told her, you know, as the wife of a city administrator, you're going to be moving a lot. And so as we were driving, following the moving van to town, she turned to me and she said, are we going to be here long? And I said, 5 years max, honey, 5 years max. So numbers are hard, aren't they, Liz? They're hard, yeah. So, but as I mentioned, she's been my partner, and so thank you, Susan. You know, in the past 40 years, let me back up. You know, when I asked a couple people, what should I say tonight? They said, well, just highlight your career, summarize your career. Well, my first day, I got to work at 8 o'clock, worked through the day, got home in about 5. Second day, got up and got there about, last 40 years, we've been through a lot as a community. 2 near 100-year floods, you know, in a 40-year period. If do a little research in the Daily Leader, at that first one, there was a real young city administrator that announced we were in the middle of a 400-year flood. And in fairness to him, and I'm not saying who that was, I'll still refer to him in the third person. It was a unique flood in that we had the river flooding, but we also had, you know, out south of town, the Rooks Creek and Turtle Creek come real close together. Well, that space eroded, which sent both creeks into town, flooded the prison, flooded Vermilion Plaza, and as you looked at the map, the south side, it was almost identical to the 400-year. But of course, the Corps only counts the river, and so it was an honest mistake. Then again, we had another one in 2008, and of course, when it rains, it pours. We also had a drought. We survived Y2K. Staff worked up some really good contingency plans for that. I can remember New Year's Eve, we sat in the fire station watching New Year's Eve in Australia to see what was going to happen. And it was very uneventful, and we survived that one. Multiple snowstorms. The prison closing until the U.S. attorney stopped that one. And then most recently, the pandemic. And then also that fateful day almost a little over a year ago when we announced that we had 59 hours to get into the ambulance business. So, you know, those are pretty significant things. And, you know, a lot has changed also. That when we came to town, the edge of the commercial district was Vermilion Plaza. And let's just take a little trip down memory lane, and don't even want to suggest for a minute that this is nothing other than representative of a lot of effort by a lot of people and a lot of teamwork. David, you ready? When I first got to town, they said the first thing we want you to accomplish, 2 things. Number 1 is to get rid of the parking meters. How many remember the parking meters? And also get a fire station built. Go ahead. Great reuse of the Abbott Automobile Company. How many remember the Abbott Automobile Company? Okay. Bill. Wow. Go ahead. The whole Western development, which was just recently with the addition of Wally's. Keep going. The 4 hotels that we've got now have provided the backbone, the financial support for beginning and sustaining the tourism endeavors. This year, we started out with a few $1,000s a month. This year, I think you're going to hit the $250,000 mark in hotel receipts. We can't use that for streets. It's dedicated by state law to advancing tourism. While at the same time we did the Western, we really concentrated on downtown and made sure that our living room of the downtown remained viable and strong. The hospital, we didn't build the hospital, but for years and years and years, I-55 was a barrier to any development on the west side of 55. And we took the utilities over to the hospital underneath the highway, bored the highway, and got them water and sewer. The Recplex, the community center, another reuse of a building which, again, a young city administrator was advocating tearing down, and good thing they didn't listen to him. Oh no, they spelled it backwards. I had to say that because I got fired for misspelling a word and putting up the wrong phone number, but be that as it may. Okay. The band shell, splash pad, train station, ice skating rink, and most recently a golf course. Not that we've started a golf course, it's just that we purchased it and really are going to build on this as a community asset. While a lot has changed physically, it's because of a lot of people. I was thinking back, I've attended over 1,100 city council meetings in Pontiac. That's about a year's worth of work time. And I'd just like to share a few observations with you. The city council is the political foundation of the city. They don't call it the mayor's meeting. They don't call it the staff meeting. They don't call it the city administrator meeting. It's the council meeting. This is your meeting. This is where you set the stage, set the tone for the community. You pass the ordinances, you pass the budget, you set taxes, pass the levy ordinance. You are the political backbone of the community. Also, I would like the community to know how dedicated not only this group, but the folks that I've served with for the 40 years are, how committed they are to the community. They put in hours and hours and hours in budget time every Monday night from January till the end of March. It's either council meeting or workshops going over the budget. I've watched other communities talk about their budget sessions that last 3 hours, as if they've really put in a lot of time. But this city council is always dedicated and put in the time. And they work very well together. Not everybody agrees on anything, but they realize that the authority that they have, I feel like I'm preaching to the choir here, but that's what I've got to do, is that their authority does not come as an individual, but as a group. And to that end, they work together. They don't have personal agendas. They disagree from time to time, but yet those don't get in the way of doing what's best for the community. You can pick up the paper any day and read about the civil wars that are taking place in city councils throughout the country. but the citizens of Pontiac is so fortunate to have you serving and those that have served before you. Being a city councilman is a thankless job that highly criticized, that sometimes questioned why. It's not just questioning why, but even motives, and that is just so crazy because this and all the councils that I've served with always put what they believe to be the best interests of the city first. Always looking at the big picture. And just want to talk about, while I did not sit in on the interviews for choosing my successor, I did sit in on the meetings that they evaluated and came to the decision that they came to. And I was so impressed with the thought that they put into this process, that each of them, as they went around the table, articulated what they saw, what they heard, and what they felt was best for the community. And I concluded afterwards, I said, I wish the whole community could have seen this process because they work so well together, each one coming from a different perspective, all coming to the same conclusion. So it all starts with the city council. And one thing I want to add is back in 1986, December 29th, the city council is the one that passed the ordinances establishing the TIF districts. And all of the things you saw up there on the screen was possible because of the funding of TIF. But for that, it's kind of like the George Bailey story. You don't see what you don't have. Without the TIF money, that stuff wouldn't be here. So it starts with the council and at the council meetings. Then there's the political leadership provided by the mayor. And as Bill mentioned, there's been five of them since I've been here. And each of them have their own unique characteristics. But again, with each of them, I can say they cared about the community. They put the community first. They articulated the policies of the council. They helped form the policies. And that political leadership is so vital to the community. We really saw that during the pandemic when we pushed Bill out front because we realized that he'd been in practically every house in town measuring up carpeting, and people could identify with him, and we took advantage of that, and really, I think, provided some good support to the community. Then we got the other elected officials of Carol and Sherry, who work behind the scenes. Sherry, you hear her voice calling the roll, and she sits through those budget workshops, and I haven't seen her doze off yet. She could be one of those people who can sleep with the eyes open. I don't know, but they can get pretty boring, can't they? And then down at the other end of the table is a counselor, Mr. Schrock. He's been at this as long as I have. So he's always on the end of those panicking phone calls of, Alan, what are we going to do? And has provided great support to this community. And he's smart, he's experienced, he's a little slow, but we all are. And he has been so critical to me. Then moving on, the other thing that this community can be proud of is this management team. All through my tenure here, we've had good department heads. And it just seems that as the organization grew, as the organization became more complex, our staff grew in stature, in their management abilities. And, and in the last few years, the change has been so rampant, whether it's societal change, whether it's changes from Springfield, and every year they're doing more with less. And, but they've just done a tremendous job. They made me look good, and if they made me look bad, it's their fault. But this team is incredible, and again, the community is so fortunate to have it. And then the city employees, there, if the council is the political base, the mayor, political leadership, the department heads, the management foundation, the employees are the hands and feet providing the services to the community. Dedicated group of employees over the last 40 years, hundreds of people who really worked hard for the city, and I really think we saw it again in the last couple of years that we had policemen, firemen out on the front lines fighting COVID, knowing that they're just one step away from catching it themselves. You know, even our administrative staff, while the city hall wasn't open, it was we were there every day making sure that that we were providing the support to the frontline employees, providing that person on the end of the phone for people that had questions. Ambulance, you know, the fire department just did a tremendous job. They worked hundreds and hundreds of overtime hours making sure that the community was served. Whenever there's a situation, employees are there providing that service. That just about does it. I'll say this, that you as the city council made a great decision in hiring Jim. It's been a pleasure working with him closely for the last couple months. He's going to do a tremendous job. He's a leader. He's learns really quickly, and you know, the organization, the community is in good hands. I did forget to mention that the last component of that I need to say thank you to is the citizens. They've supported us. They've helped raise our family. This is really a unique community with some wonderful people. And I think if we focus on what we have as opposed to focusing on what we don't have, we'll really move forward. So, Jim, it's all yours. Take good care of them. And in summary, thank you to everyone for the support you've given us over the past 40 years. Thank you.
Thank you. That's pretty good. You kept it under the hour and 20 minutes I allowed. Anytime you go. Thank you, Susan. I know you've had to put up with a lot too, so you know we really appreciate that. As we moved on here, it comes to mayor's comments. I've made many of mine. I just like to remind everyone that coming up soon we'll have the Freshman's Reunion, Freshers Parade, another big event for the community. We do have the U of I marching band that will be participating. The drawing a really nice crowd, and I think they're all coming to see Bob. So you know it works out good for all of us. You know? Yeah, it's the U of I marching band, by the way. Doesn't have anything to do with Michigan. Just so you know. Okay. I have several other things to talk about, Bob, but I'll save those for a better time. City council comments.
I have
Yeah.
one. I received contacts from a couple different residents last week asking me if I knew anything about the noise that is coming from the west side of town. And it's a noise that I have been hearing all summer long at my house, very loud, appeared to be coming from Caterpillar or Interlake, but I really hadn't investigated. But these people were annoyed by it, and so I made some contacts and found out it is coming from Interlake, and it is quite disturbing to people. I visited with Dave today, and he's gonna go out there, if he didn't this afternoon, maybe tomorrow, to try to find out what they're doing. It's apparently a bad machine issue, and they've been trying to get parts, but it's very loud at certain times of the day. I hear it all the time at my house. It was the DeBolt subdivision people were calling and other people on, that area of town. So just letting everybody know if you hear it, or it sounds like a very loud muffler constantly. It's just constant. And the employees told me that if we think it's bad on the outside, that we should be inside listening to it. It's quite disturbing, so.
I haven't gotten any comments on that, but,
They say it's-
I've been wondering about it all summer, but I just haven't, I knew that, you've got to hear it, Alan, because
I hadn't noticed it, so.
well, I
I'll
asked
pay
Tom
attention.
Ewing because he lives right across the river, and he's
Yeah.
like, I don't hear well, but I don't hear it. And I
I'll
was
say
like, you
something
need to
to
go
John, she hears
outside.
everything.
So, anyway.
thank you.
Good at tuning stuff out.
Mike?
Then I just have, with the completion of Indiana Avenue, I just want us to take a look. I've had a couple of calls about the speed again. I've taken a ride down there on my bicycle, and it is getting a little crazy down there. So I would really like us to look into a few things to mitigate that speed, if we can. Some solar-powered flashing LED light or something that says you're going too fast, the speed limit. We don't have a school, there's a school there, and there's not a school sign. And the Boys and Girls Club oftentimes have children crossing at the Illini intersection, going to the high school several times a day, little tykes. So I don't know what they're doing, but there are cars coming, screaming is probably a little too much to say, but they're coming down there at a pretty good clip, and there isn't a stop sign until they get to the high school. So perhaps we can look at a sign there at Illini and Indiana to stop that traffic there. I noticed that we've had some officers sit there. I think it would be wonderful if an officer had, if we had that as part of their weekly or bi-weekly stop to sit there for a while and notify a few of the speeding cars that they might be speeding. So, and I really think also a school sign there will also bring the traffic speed down a bit. So if we could look into, I don't know who would do that, but if we could look into solar-powered flashing LED signs, maybe one of those wagon solar-powered speed signs, which we could use elsewhere in the city. We could set them up. It says, flashes you going 35 in a 30 zone. So anyway, that's my, I would like to have that looked at pretty closely.
So response is we've talked about it, and the police chief is investigating the signs, and so we're looking into that avenue of this is your speed sign, one of those that's multi-purpose that can be used for other things as well. In addition to that, they have run radar, and I don't know what your final numbers are if you have them, but yeah, go ahead.
Let's see, beginning on August 5th, it looks like 14 traffic contacts, and I just put the word out for officers to, between calls when they have time to have a visible presence out there.
So if you're seeing 14 opportunities there, How's that related to elsewhere in town?
I mean, it's a nice wide new road, so,
Yeah.
I mean, that would be the hot spot as far as speeding location in town, I would say right now.
Good.
I would venture that it's probably similar to Ladd Street between Reynolds
Yeah.
and.
It's where most of the traffic is.
Yeah, across the river, because that's a long stretch of no stop sign too.
Well, something we looked at and pondered. We've had several Indiana Speedway signs we could put up, or actually, not Speedway signs. But, you know, I think-
Indianapolis 500, right?
Yeah,
In the Indiana Avenue 500?
something like that. But I think the idea of school zone is probably something we could do.
Well, we need to check there's some statutory and regulatory standards for posting those signs certain distances ahead of the schools. So Chris would have the manual to see if we're posted appropriately. I don't know if you can post it as far back as the Boys and Girls Club. I don't know whether that works or not. But whatever the standards are, if it isn't posted in accordance with the standards, tickets written in the school zone wouldn't necessarily be enforceable. You know, some competent defense attorney is gonna say they was not properly posted.
Sure, yeah.
lawyers anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah, there just isn't, there's a crossing sign there, but it doesn't alert people to the fact that there's actually children there. So, I think it's just changing that sign would probably alert people to it.
Okay. Any other comments, questions?
Well, based on past experience, good old officers sitting there with a speed gun probably gets word out about as good as
I
anything.
believe that.
I mean, you know, when you go by Fair Ford, you go slow, for a reason.
Okay. Okay. City Administrator.
Just wanted to remind everyone, August 26th is an open house here to celebrate, for the community can come and celebrate Bob's retirement. August 26th from 4 p.m. to 7 p.m. And so I think he'll be here. And other than that, I have 15 days left with him, so I have to maximize that time and get this figured out, so that's it.
Public comments.
I'd like to add also with the Indiana sign, I'd like to have one on Hazel Street. Because there's no way, I don't think there's one speed limit sign at all on Hazel. And some days, it just seems like some people go like 35 to 50 miles an hour. And there are children on that street. And there's also ATM, and some of those act like it's being out there also. So if they can check for that, that would be great.
Good point.
So, and also, I want to tell you how nice that was on the corner of, what is it, Main and Washington, with those three houses gone.
Yes.
Really cleans up the neighborhood.
Yeah. Yeah, while we're talking about that, Jim and Chris have been doing a great job of getting the downtown area weeds and different things out of view and cleaning it up. And we've had nice comments from a lot of people about how refreshing it is to see what actually is behind some of these areas now. So they're doing a great job too. Yeah.
I forgot to add the house on North Locust Street, Locust and Polk. Huge difference in that neighborhood too with that house back. That was very nice.
I think we have one more to do, so we're getting there.
I just want to let you know. It's appreciated.
All right, any other comments? Anything to do with other than to wish Bob the best? I think we're ready to. Other than that, I think we're ready to adjourn. Motion by Frank, seconded by Mike. We're adjourned. Thank you.
Here, this would be fast.